for joining me for the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Howie Jacobson. There's a lot of drama going on in the plant-based meat and dairy alternatives world right now, from the tanking stock prices and lots of industry naysayers coming up with "I told you so" stories, from the shocking removal of founder Miyoko Shinner from Miyoko's and the lawsuit and the countersuit, some bad behavior by leaders at different food companies that have been making the news, and pretty much in direct opposition to the values that we would hope people in the plant-based movement would exhibit and share across the world. And to help me make sense of it is a plant-based meat analog entrepreneur, Danny O'Malley, who is the founder and president of Before the Butcher and a veteran of this industry. And he joins me to talk about his own journey, what he's learned from the successes and the failures of the trailblazers who've come before him, like Tofurky and Impossible and beyond. And he's got a bunch of advice for entrepreneurs who want to get into the space, and for those of us in the plant-based movement in general who are still trying to convince people through advocacy and education that eating more plants and fewer animals is a good idea. So it's a freewheeling conversation. Hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, Danny O'Malley, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Hey, thanks, Howie. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, so your shirt says plant powered. That tells me something already. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, interesting enough, I've been a focal of my life really has been plant-based for the past close to 10 years now. And prior to that, it's not that I wasn't eating plant-based, I was also eating animal-based, and that transition was really important to me. And it came kind of naturally. It had to do with me working for one of the leaders in the plant-based analog movement, which is Beyond Meat, and then working my way over after a few years to start my own company, Before the Butcher, which is what I'm doing today. But this is really my lifestyle. This is what I do. This is how I live every single day, and I love to talk about it.
Sweet, because I've talked to basically two types of people who are in the plant-based food industry. One type tends to be someone who grew up in the industry, maybe like worked for Hormel or Tyson, chicken or something like that, and then saw like a business opportunity. And they're not necessarily a plant-based evangelist, but they're like, boy, the way we do protein in this country is insane. And I think there's a better way. And I have all these contacts and I understand how to produce, protein at scale, and I understand distribution. And then the other is like vegan activists who are like, we're not going to change hearts and minds until we change taste buds. So let's go and create. Do you have a sense of are you a sort of a hybrid of those? Like how did you come to all this?
I think about a quasi combination of both of them. My focus when I left, I worked for a large corporation in food service before I went to work for Beyond Meat about 9 years ago. And I needed to get out of corporate world, and I needed an opportunity to work for a young startup. And it just kind of fell together. At the time, I wasn't vegan, but I was a pretty healthy person and looking at options to be healthier and stay that way as we age, of course. And I was just so intrigued by what they were doing back then. And there was an opportunity in sales, and I took it. And unfortunately, they took me at the same time, too. And I started moving forward and started better understanding the challenges that we have in this world, not just health-wise, obviously, but the health of our planet, and realizing how integral these type of companies, not just food manufacturers, but other companies looking for ways to more sustainably make their products or produce things that are better for this world and the health of this planet as we move forward. And so I was really intrigued by that. And back then, 9 years ago, the products that Beyond was making aren't anywhere near what are being made today. They're obviously much better. And even then, I thought, hey, there's something going on here. After a couple of years, I realized that this was it. I was entrenched in it myself. I had become a vegan as well, and it wasn't because of Beyond Meat. It was because that was my belief in what I wanted to do for myself and for health reasons as well, and for the health of the planet. And it wasn't much longer after I converted into becoming a vegan and eating plant-based that I realized I've got all the tools myself to go out there and expand this phenomenon, this wave of plant-based that I saw was coming. And this is 5.5 years ago now, which I guess at this point in time makes me one of the older people time-wise in the plant-based movement. And I separate, Howie, I separate plant-based from vegan and vegetarian because before this plant-based movement came, especially in plant-based meat analogs and dairy and now seafood and things like that, the focus for vegans and vegetarians were to eat a whole food space, not so much to eat products that were being processed in a way that mimic animal-based proteins. Our focus really is not just the vegans and vegetarians. We love them. We want them to enjoy our products, but really the meat eaters, the ones out there that are saying, hey, I'm eating meat, and we want to help maybe not completely convert them, but get them to try these products and say, hey, look, maybe I'll eat these a couple times a week, right? And so I guess that kind of makes me a little bit of a quasi combination of the two examples that you gave. But by business acumen, not force me, but kind of push me that direction because I saw the opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. 'Cause, so it was like 9 years ago was when you first jumped on with Beyond.
Yeah.
I think about those early days, and I've had Paul Shapiro on the podcast, and he wrote a book, Clean Meat, sort of like the history, and like it amazes me that there were like the bets people were making back then. First of all, that you could make something that would be palatable based on, like these vats of giant fermenters and all this like high tech equipment, but also that it would, like a social bet that this is something that people would want. It's, like sort of hats off to those pioneers. I'm wondering like what you saw in those early days that was like, worthy of sharing now in terms of the spirit and the energy and the strategy that went into saying, did it feel like a moonshot? Did it feel like, this is obviously the wave of the future?
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting, and I have this conversation often, is it was a real battle. My background in the food service or food distribution industry, I knew a lot of people. And of course, when Beyond started, they always pushed toward getting these products in the same areas that animal-based proteins were. So if meat was being sold, we wanted to be sold with the meat, right? Not with the vegan or vegetarian products, but with meat. So people could see that the products that were being made were meant to mimic animal-based proteins, but in a healthier, more sustainable way. And it was a tremendous battle. I'm telling you, probably for the 100% of the time that I spent out there trying to sell the product, 90% was education, trying to get people to understand what we were doing, why we were doing it, and how it was going to change things moving forward. And it was banging my head against the wall and going at it over and over and over again. And I think for those who are passionate about it, the answer of no is a maybe, strangely enough. And when we used to get an answer was, oh, this is not bad. Not bad was fantastic back then. It was like, wow, not bad? Really? Not bad to me is good, right? Nowadays, I don't like not bad, but back then, not bad was the best two words I ever heard. And I knew I had an opportunity to grow going forward. And the more and more I heard that not bad, I knew that there was a lot of opportunity out there because I wasn't hearing it from people that were already intrigued by what we were doing and why we were doing it. I was hearing that from people that put up a block and a wall right away and said, I'm not interested because I know you can come in and show it to me. And when they said not bad and they're hardcore meat eaters, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I can break this wall down. And I think that's really where many of us thought that the opportunity was much larger when that wall started breaking down with actual meat eaters out there, not the vegans and vegetarians that we knew would have interest in what we were doing. It was the meat eaters.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because every year I have a couple of barbecues in my backyard, and I invite my ultimate frisbee team, and I don't say anything. I just bring out, I don't bring out the bags. I just bring out the frozen burgers, and we put them on the grill. And I feel like, like I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
To then deliver the punchline later. Like, by the way, that was not a hamburger. That was not beef. But, so I have this prop that I can use, so I don't actually have to become annoying. I'm imagining a hardcore vegan going out and doing your job in those days and selling might be at a disadvantage because they're going to be selling ethics. They're going to be selling responsibility. Like what when I say not bad is okay. So this tastes, I'll grant you that. But what do, supermarket executives or people at, McDonald's or Burger King, what are they thinking about in terms of introducing a product into their shelves? Because I know how competitive it is, what the tight margins are in the food industry. Like, what did they want to know? And what could you even tell them about demand that would get them to say, okay, we're gonna give you 6 linear inches of shelf space and see how it goes?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll revert back just a little bit to one comment that you made about vegans back then trying to sell this type of product. A hardcore vegan wouldn't have. That was part of our battle, was getting the vegans to realize that, hey, we were doing something good for this planet. And the whole premise behind trying to get animal-based protein eaters or meat eaters to eat these products was to reduce the impact on this earth, even if they did it once a week or once a month or 10 times a year or whatever it was. So part of our battle back then was just trying to convince vegans that we were doing the right thing because they were upset with what we were doing and starting to partner with meat companies and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay. You mean they were the vegans were upset at this is a sellout. You're talking to Tyson. Yeah. You're talking to. It wasn't that you're producing a plant-based product. It was who you were in bed with.
Right. That and the fact that we were making something for meat eaters, because a lot of vegans, hardcore vegans, would say, "Hey, look, one of the reasons I got away from eating is animal-based proteins is I didn't like the texture. I didn't like the bite, the chew, the smell, the taste, and that's what you're doing." And we would say, "Well, that's fine. It's all good. You're doing great things for yourself and for the planet and for the animals, and we want to do our part too. Our part is just a little bit different than yours." So, gotcha. But getting back to answering your question about the McDonald's or the Burger Kings and so on and so forth, they don't want to lose a dollar. It's really that simple in my mind. If 4 people want to go out to eat and one of them's plant-based, and 3 of them say, "Hey, let's go to Burger King," and there's a restaurant next door that serves a plant-based burger, the 4th person is probably going to influence that entire group to go next door. And so, all the way up, whether you're at mom and pop on the corner or a little food truck over here or a large international chain like McDonald's or Burger King or Pizza Hut or wherever else, everybody wants a piece of the pie, and they see how big that pie is, right? And so if you have a small group of people, you don't want to lose any of them. So if it's as simple as saying, hey, we can put one item on our menu and keep that item and perhaps have a little bit less sales and have to accommodate that, maybe we've brought in 3 additional people that would have gone somewhere else.
Gotcha. So that sounds very rational, and it sounds very 6 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've been following the Cracker Barrel thing where they
Yeah.
added some vegan option, and it caused it's like this whole part of this whole giant culture war where anything plant-based is like some like Alex Jones plot to turn the frogs gay. Right? Right. Like, so are people worried now that if you do that anything plant-based is now signaling, wokeness and is going to turn off a whole other segment?
Well, look, interesting enough, just like when you go into a grocery store, there's a place you want to be to begin the growth of your business, and then you want to capture the entire grocery store. So generally, you want to be on the perimeter of the grocery store because that's where the biggest turns are. That's where people float around, and the perimeter is the most important part, the most expensive real estate in a grocery store. Same thing with our country. The perimeters of our country is the most expensive real estate, and also where you want to be when you start some kind of trend or some kind of movement. And that's what we see from plant-based as we move toward the interior of this country, which is where most of the Cracker Barrels are. You start battling a little bit with the heart of America, who may have a different opinion. And I think that's what we saw there. I thought it was really interesting. Look, that'll change over time. It just naturally will. We will always have naysayers, but you have that in any industry. This isn't exclusive to plant-based or plant-based analogs. We're always going to be battling with somebody else that doesn't like us taking their business or getting into their business, whatever it may be. And I think that's what we saw there. I found it very interesting, especially with the nature of the industry today and some of the challenges that we're having.
Wow, that's a really fun analogy to think about, the perimeter. So you're basically talking the east and west coasts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and some of that will skirt around the edges a little bit, and you get certain areas within the country that are more inclined, and they generally tend to be higher populated metropolitan areas. Maybe the Chicago area or the Denver area, and areas like that, where you can say, hey, there are other areas that do well with plant-based alternatives, in addition to, California, all the way up the coast to the Northwest, and then on the East Coast, especially up in the New York area and a little bit down to Washington, D.C., and even trickling down to Florida as well.
Gotcha. So one of the things that your press sheet promised you could speak about is the sustainability question of plant-based versus animal-based. And there's been, the PR people have been doing a very intense job of seeding doubt about whether plant-based alternatives are actually any better, and, showing the list of ingredients versus, beef, suggesting that it's not natural, that somehow playing with the numbers, showing that it actually causes more greenhouse gases or whatever. Like, can you lay out the landscape of the debate and what data you see that suggests that plant-based meat alternatives can be environmentally better?
Well, honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a report that actually shows that producing a plant-based burger creates more greenhouse gases than an animal-based protein, burger. I think it's always been fairly clear from the beginning, and most meat companies that actually produce burgers and meat products would agree with that, at least to some extent, because most of them are now deeply involved in making plant-based products or own a plant-based company as well. So if you look at most of the major meat companies in the U.S. and various different parts internationally, you'll see that those companies are already on the bandwagon. Where the battle is coming from are really the cattlemen's associations, the ones that are raising the cattle. That's where it's coming from. And you can go out and you can drive different, analyze different things as you go along. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure many people would really question whether or not it's better for the environment to make and then therefore consume a plant-based burger than it is to produce an animal-based protein burger from beef. I don't think there really is a lot of question about that. There's always the naysayers. At the end of the day, it's a better thing for this planet. Now, if you want to get into the details about whether it's healthier for you, we can just look at the cholesterol count and how it affects our heart and how it affects us overall as human beings. I'm not saying that every plant-based burger out there or every plant-based meat analog is the healthiest thing for you. That's for you to determine. I think you need to look at labels. And I think the people that generally eat these type of products are quite educated. They take their time. They flip the package over. They look at the label. They make an educated decision on whether they want to eat it and how often. The one thing I always tell people, Howie, is this. You have to have a varied diet. If you sat down and ate, 3 or 4 plant-based burgers every single day, you'd have some health issues, right? and it's the same thing about animal-based protein or any product that you ate in that way. Our bodies are meant to have a varied diet, and being able to consume in such a way that you're finding the right thing for your body chemistry is really important. And I say your body chemistry because all of us react differently to different products. Some people are allergic to certain products, and they may find that in a plant-based burger or plant-based analog, and you have to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So let's talk specifically about before the butcher, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So what are the inputs if you're calculating carbon footprint or energy load or anything like that? What are the inputs into I don't know, your chicken nuggets or what pick a product? How can we just look at the difference between that and the original meat-based version?
Well, we haven't done a full analysis of our products specifically. But if we look back at, let's just say Beyond Meat, and they've done their analysis directly of their product with the University of Michigan, and there's a breakdown of that specifically lends toward the differences between animal-based proteins and plant-based proteins and how significant it can be between those two. Now, keep in mind that this was done by the University of Michigan, so it wasn't, Beyond Meat going out and doing this themselves. They literally had a university doing it. I don't have the exact numbers, but I believe it was somewhere close to 90%. The difference in water usage between an animal-based protein made from beef, and there is a difference there too. Keep in mind, there's a difference between chicken and beef and pork and usage of resources when those products are being grown or groomed to be killed and slaughtered for meat products or for products that we eat. So being very specific to that, you would see a tremendous difference. The biggest difference is in beef compared to plant-based proteins.
Gotcha. So the other big thing I think about what you're doing now is you're really aiming for price parity, right? I think the first, the first hamburgers were $300 each, and they've been slowly coming down. But where the two lines of the graph meet seems to be kind of a sweet spot. Talk about that. What are the challenges? And it seems to me like it should be cheaper to make this because it has so much fewer inputs. But there are structural things in place, I guess, that means that sort of a healthy plant-based product is going to be more expensive.
Well, first of all, we're not subsidized by the government, and most animal-based proteins are subsidized by the government, and makes a difference from the farmers all the way up in order to keep the prices down and regulate the pricing. It's different for us from the very beginning. But secondarily, there are inputs and costs involved that, people think that we just take a soybean and make it into a burger. I wish it was that simple. It's not. There are some complexities behind it. So it is a little bit more challenging to make these products than just taking a slab of beef and breaking it down and grinding it and making it into a burger. So with that, we have to deal with cost inputs there. But on the same side, or on the flip side of all of that, is we are inching our way toward that price parity. Now, price parity with what? I mean, at this point in time, the burgers didn't start at 300. Maybe cultured meat burgers will start at $300, but around $3 a burger was right. And you're talking, when you talk about how much that is per pound, you're talking about $12 a pound, right? Which for most people back 6 or 7 years when Beyond, 6 or 7 years ago when Beyond released their burger, that was what it cost for maybe filet mignon, right? Really high-end steak. Today you can find the burger still at that price or less expensive on the market. We have a product ourselves that we released about a year and a half ago, and it's a secondary brand that we call Mainstream. And the whole purpose was to make it more affordable for the mainstream. We released that product into the market at a $10.99 retail value for 8 burgers. That's a lot less expensive than anything that was on the market, and still less expensive than anything that's on the market today, and really very comparable for what you'd find for ground beef. So if you go into a supermarket and you go into the frozen foods department, you may see our 8-pack of quarter-pound burgers. It's 2 pounds for $10.99, something less than that. I've seen it even down to $8.99 or $9.99. And you may say ground beef right next to it at the same price. That's the ultimate goal here, Howie, is that when a consumer goes into the market, they have a choice. And the choice is not based on the economics of what they want to purchase, but on what they'd really like to buy. So if you see beef burgers here for this price and plant-based burgers over here for that price, it's the same price. Then the consumer can make the choice that they want to make, not what the economy is forcing them to make.
Gotcha. So in terms of pricing, you have your costs and then profits. A lot of the early meat-based companies, were the investors included people like, Paul Allen or Bill Gates, Sergey Brin and Larry Page of Google, who I think took a long view. Like, they weren't investing like to increase their net worth necessarily, but because almost like social activism. But a lot of companies need, the investors want to get their money back and get out. So I'm wondering, what does the plant-based analog movement look like in terms of, is it like long-term visionary investors who understand, who are not demanding instant profits? Is it more people coming in like, typical VCs who are just, trying to get their money back in 3 to 5 years? And how does that affect, pricing and growth?
Well, I think there's an interesting twist to what happened in the plant-based meat industry, starting with Beyond Meat and with Impossible Foods and a couple others out there. Is some of those early investors, certainly you can relate to who those early investors are because they're from the tech industry, right? And so this became food tech because it was really food science developing these products. In the tech industry, there seems to be, or has been for many years, a lot of leeway when it comes to profitability, right? It's a long-term shot. It's like, hey, I know that they're not going to make money in 2 to 3 years, but I know in 10 years, if they continue to do what they're doing, they could be absolutely huge and it changed the world, right? And so I think that's what the vision was from the very beginning when when a lot of high-profile tech investors jumped in and said, hey, we see the opportunity here because it reminds us a little bit of the tech industry when it was young. right? And we can jump in here and be a part of this growth. And at that time, the expectation was, I don't expect to see any profits anytime soon. We'll hang on this, and we'll continue to invest into it and allow the industry to grow and find a way to make profits at some point in time. Well, I think we're there, Howie, that we're at that point now where the VCs and the investors have pulled back and said, wait a minute, you guys have had some time now. Beyond Meat's been in business for 11 years and Impossible close to the same amount of time. Beyond Meat, as we know, is struggling. They haven't really made money, and they've lost a lot of money along the way. Impossible's a private company. We don't actually know whether they're making money, but the fact that they brought in over $2 billion worth of investment makes you think that they probably haven't made money, and you wonder where they are today. We don't know. They haven't brought any money in recently, which is a good sign, because when you go out and get more money, that usually means you're not making money, right? You need it. So I think we're at that point now where investors are being very cautious. They're making decisions to invest in plant-based meat analogs and the plant-based industry based on innovation, based on opportunity of innovation in something that we may not have seen before that will elevate the industry in a way that's different than what we see today. So the average company that just says, hey, I'm going to make a plant-based burger isn't going to interest them anymore. It's been there. It's done that, right? They want somebody that says, I've got the most amazing steak that's plant-based that you've ever seen in your life, and let me show you how I'm doing it. And I've got technology that's going to be patented that nobody's done before. That's where the interest lies today. And there are quite a few plant-based manufacturers today that are struggling because they're not able to go out and get additional money to fund their business, to keep it afloat, and continue to build their business so they can be profitable in the future. And the future is challenging for those companies, I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, there's a narrative that I've seen in the business press, Wall Street Journal or Economist, where it's the plant-based movement was sort of a giddy bubble. And it turns out that the people who are buying it are like the vegetarians and vegans, like, so, 0.5% to 1% to maybe 3% of a population. And now all of a sudden the bubble is burst, just like, crypto or Silicon Valley in 2000, is like, so what you said was like the new investors are looking for innovation. I would think they'd be looking at demand and like, what, there doesn't seem to be as much demand, or the demand was faddish as opposed to growing.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting is if you look at the numbers are really flat for the last about year and a half. So we really haven't been going down. We've just been flat. So the demand is there. Now, I think that, in my opinion, this is what happened. Yes, there was this big bubble, but the bubble consists of people that were trying this product that may not have gone back to buy it again. The ones that really enjoy eating these type of products are still eating it today. And I think that is verified by the fact that we haven't really dropped. We've just stayed flat. That will continue to trend back up. I think by the end of 2023, we're going to see a nice trend going forward in this perhaps the high single digits and low double digits, and we'll settle in there as we continue to grow the industry going forward. It's not going to fall out like we've seen in the tech industry more than once, where it completely dropped out. And then there was this tremendous rebuild, which rebuilt way over the top of where it was before, and then the dropout again. I don't foresee that happening at all. People have to eat, and what's happening today, Howie, is the millennials, which are the biggest percentage of population or generational population that enjoys these type of products, are having children. Right. And those children are being brought up with these type of products. So we don't have to educate anymore. The education process is really taking place already. So as these millennials grow up and, maybe the edge of the X gen and the millennials and the Z gen, they're growing up with this in their lives. They don't have to bring it into their lives. It's already in their lives. And we will see growth naturally and progressively over time. Right now, just like most businesses, just like most industries, there's hills and valleys, and we're sitting a little bit in a valley right now. We're gonna work our way back up.
Gotcha. So is there is the industry big enough in terms of clout that it could do damage to the farm bill? Because it seems like if people had to pay what things actually cost, plant-based would be in a completely different place. It would be considerably cheaper than beef, in parity with pork or chicken. But there, as you mentioned at the beginning, there are these like structural unfairnesses, but they're based on on lobbying largely.
Yeah.
Does the plant-based industry trying to flex its muscle and discover a kind of power to change that dynamic?
Good question, Howie. In fact, I was just contacted by a colleague of mine just a couple of weeks ago, and she said to me, she says, Danny, we're getting beat up out there today, and we really need to get the manufacturers and the companies like yours together to create one force going forward and get a strong lobbyist in Washington to help us battle against these giant international corporations and these giant lobbyists who have tremendous millions and millions of dollars behind them in order to beat down what they see as a threat. And in some cases, we truly are that threat. And it's a challenge. Look, I go back to the launch of the Beyond Burger and the Impossible Burger going on, I think, 7 years now this spring. And as really the birth of the plant-based analog industry, right? And the focus of this industry to make products that are really geared to compete with animal-based proteins in the market. And knowing that, we are a very, very, very young industry. Yes, vegan and vegetarian products go back 50, 60, 70 years to the beginning of time, right? But this is different because the focus then wasn't to convert or wasn't to get meat eaters to eat these products because they were so similar to what they were used to eating and create comfort foods in that way. So this is really a different version of the industry. And knowing it's that young, we're just kind of battling to find our position. And that's not going to happen overnight. We've got years of battling in front of us, and we will continue to make it work one way or the other. And we will continue to grow knowing that we can get better and better. But yes, being able to get all of us together is an important part of that.
Gotcha. So I want to learn about Before the Butcher and mainstream. So you were at Beyond, doing sales, seeing the thing grow. What made you say, I've got my own thing to do?
Well, I guess a little bit of frustration. There were only, when I was there, I think when I got hired, there weren't more than about 20 employees, and I was hired by Ethan Brown, the founder and CEO, and the co-founder at the time, who's no longer with the company. But they were the ones that hired me, and I thought at the time that I would have an opportunity to communicate and voice what I'm hearing out on the streets about what people were interested in, because there were only 3 salesmen at that time, and I was one of the 3. So Beyond was a very small company. And they were in R&D developing all these different products. And the 3 of us were the only ones that were on the street really talking to the consumer, the retailer, the operator, the distributors, and trying to get a feel for what they were interested in seeing. Unfortunately, I never had that opportunity really to talk about what I was hearing on the street because they were so focused on what they were doing. They weren't really interested in what we were doing and what we were hearing. They were obviously interested in what we were doing because they wanted us to sell it. So I think there
So
were a lot
they
of,
were looking for like sales rather than customer discovery conversations.
right.
Like
So
they were in love with their product, and they're going to make them buy it, as opposed to what do people really want.
Yeah, I'm talking more about development. What are we doing going forward? We've already got these products, but what are we doing going forward? And I would think it would be integral input to talk to the people that were deeply involved in selling these products to the people that were interested in them and what they might want to see. But that really wasn't the case. And certainly that's the prerogative of anybody that owns or runs a company. They can do what they want to do. And it was, I guess, a bit frustrating for me. So I thought, well, look, if I can't be part of it, maybe I can do this myself. And I had a pretty good idea what I thought the consumer was looking for at that time. And I made a decision to go out on my own and get together a pretty darn good group of people to help me make it happen. And, after 5.5 years now, I think we've been pretty successful. Most startups don't make it that long. So we're doing good, and we're actually profitable on top of it all.
Oh, what's your secret?
The secret is keeping the team very tight, having a partnership with the company who is co-producing our products for us. It's our sister company, owned by the same group of investors. And so with that partnership, we're able to create synergies, and I'm able to use some of their staff to help keep my staff costs down because they do it every single day. They're a burger company that does really well, and I'm able to really use their office staff. I have my own staff there as well, but I use their office as well, and it helps keep my costs down.
And by burger company, you mean traditional meat-based burgers?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. But they've been interested for many years in the plant-based industry, and now they actually pack for other plant-based companies. So they have a plant-based division. We fall under that division now. We're a separate corporation. So we are run separately, but we're under their division, under the investor umbrella. And, fortunate for us, they have the team there to get the job done. And I enhance that team with our own team, and it works out really well for us. So what I like to say is we handle the front of the house, which is the sales and the marketing and the R&D of our products, and they handle the back of the house. They handle the shipping, the receiving, the products, finished products, the ingredients, and all of that for us. So that's actually nice to get that off your back when you're moving forward and focusing just on what you really need to do, which is develop and market and sell.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I can see how you have a sort of a leanness structural advantage in the production of the product. What was the advantage that you found in terms of listening to the customer, doing all the research and customer discovery and market insight that was frustrating you that it wasn't being listened to at Beyond? What did you learn that enabled you to go out and hit singles or doubles, if not home runs, and make money?
Well, the first thing I learned was they wanted more than just burgers and ground products. And so when we developed our first, we came out with 8 products initially. And flavored products, by the way, too. We came out with, a ground product, which was like a ground beef, but we also came out with a chorizo and a sausage, an Italian sausage ground, which was interesting back then. There wasn't a lot of that out there back then. But we also came out with chicken chunks, beef tips, and pulled pork. And all of that was kind of unique for the industry at that time. So what we decided going forward was we were going to build families of products. So we did a family of plant-based patties. And so we have our regular beef-like patty and a chicken patty and a turkey patty, and then our award-winning breakfast sausage patty. And then we went on to develop a family of plant-based grounds as well. And so we have 5 different grounds, different flavor profiles that are interesting to people. What I really learned was most people just don't want to do that. They don't want to, if it's already made and they can just throw it in a pan and add, a couple things to it, they're ready to go. It's a lot easier than trying to take the base and build it up a certain way. So when we made our taco ground, people were like, well, wow, that's great, because I would have to add taco seasoning and this and that. And every time I do it, it tastes a little bit different. And but our taco ground tastes the same every single time, and they know what to expect. And so that's kind of what I learned right early from the beginning, and what we focused on moving forward.
Mm. And have you found, like, when you talk about like the chicken, I've tasted a bunch of the stuff. They're very different products. Like, you don't confuse the one with the other. Was that like a whole new R&D cycle? Or are the products, like in the back end, at the back of the house, are they similar enough in terms of the technology and the tools used to produce them that this is scalable? Or are you really like, reinventing every single new product?
There are some variables that are similar, and then there's some distinct differences on how you prepare these products. So look, that all comes with the R&D and the development and the scale. Fortunately, I have somebody that runs our R&D and production team, and he is just fantastic. He's been with me from the very beginning, and he had experience dealing with analogs like this prior to working for us. So I was very fortunate to find somebody that was really aware of how to make these type of products and how to develop them. Today, for us, Howie, it's a little bit different. Back then, it was very lean. There weren't a lot of people that understood how to create these type of products. Today, I don't want to say it's commonplace, but it's becoming more and more that way. And ingredient suppliers are helping on the R&D end. We have 3 different R&D partners that help us with the research and development of any product that we're making today. Part of the challenge is kind of what you were leading up to, equipment, just being able to have the right type of equipment to make a product. And I can give you a real simple example. We just developed a pepperoni, and we didn't have the equipment within our facility to make pepperoni. And up until this point in time, we have produced all of our own products. We don't have a separate co-producer outside of our sister company making these products. So we didn't have the equipment. The equipment's fairly expensive. We were able to go to one of our R&D partners who has a research lab in the Midwest, and my R&D team goes out there frequently to use their equipment to develop our products. And we get to work with their scientists as well, their food scientists, to help us and give us direction and help us make products that would have been difficult for us to do on our own.
Yeah. Sounds like being a food scientist working with you could be kind of fun.
Yeah, well, look, I wish I had that talent, to be honest with you. I don't. I'm fortunate to have the right people making it. It's a lot of fun. I get to try everything that comes out of the gate. Sometimes it's not that great, and sometimes it's absolutely incredible. So on my end, I'm the one trying it. It's fun for me, but I love it. I think it's really fun to watch my team get in there and develop different things, and I think they like it too. The versions that, we can be anywhere from 12 to 14 to 30 to 40 and upwards. I mean, our pepperoni, I think we've got over 50 versions of that product before we really figured out how we wanted it done. So it's not that easy.
Mm. So where can people find your stuff now?
Well, we're in Whole Foods, and we're in sporadic different places throughout the country. Like on the East Coast, we're in Lidl, we're in the Central Market, in Texas area. But honestly, you could go into many different grocery stores and get a plant-based product, a pizza or burrito. There's a decent chance that it may be our product in there. We work with a lot of further producers, a lot of other manufacturers that make plant-based items, mostly for frozen, sometimes for refrigerated, and they use our product as an ingredient. So we do a
Okay.
lot of business like that. And
Uh-huh.
one other one, if you get a chance to go into Target or into Sprouts, there's a bunch of grocery chains across the East Coast as well. Try Ming's Bings. Celebrity chef Ming Tsai makes Ming's Bings, which is like a pocket, a vegan pocket, and he's got some really good ones. That's our meat inside of there. So he's got a cheeseburger and a sausage Ming's Bing, and he's got a Southwest with chorizo in it. They are fantastic. They are really good, and we are co-branded on that package. So if you look at the package, you'll see our name on there too.
Gotcha. Cool. Cool. So what's the future hold? If you could, both sort of paint an optimistic, realistic picture of the next 5 years. Where do you want to be? Where do you want the movement to be?
Well, I want the movement to have steady growth, and I think that's what we're going to see. Like I said earlier, I think we're going to see anywhere between high single digit and low double digit growth, pretty steady, moving forward after this year and going into 2024 and beyond that into the next 3 to 5 years. I think that's going to be where we kind of stabilize ourselves and get back to that growth period. We're going to see some new products hit the market. We have some exciting ones, that we're working on right now. Some deli meats. We have a fish stick that we're working on that is just really incredible. And of course, our pepperoni coming out, and we're looking at a beef stick too, kind of like a Slim Jim. That is probably the best product that I've ever tried, and I'm really excited about getting that one into manufacturing and getting that one going. So we're looking to expand in that way, but we're also focusing on how we will remain profitable and continue to grow our business sustainably. And a lot of that has to do with industrial or ingredient-based business, like I spoke about earlier, is working with some large manufacturers that are making plant-based products like pizzas or burritos or bowls. And we would be the ingredient within that product. And we're pretty excited about that growth too.
Gotcha. That brings up, a sort of a question about the company culture. And I don't know Ethan Brown. I've known you for 45 minutes now, and I get a sense of your spirit and what you're up to. There have been cases, these news reports of some pretty grim employee experiences at some companies that I would think, I would want them to be better, whether it's Beyond or things I've read about, Amy's or things like that. Like, how do you think about growing in a way that's, that satisfies the market, that satisfies investors, and that respects the people who are on the journey with you?
Well, look, every business is run most normally, right, by the person who's in charge, whether it's the owner or the CEO, president. And I would always hope that there would be respect from that person all the way down to, the hourly worker that works hard to help make that business successful. We don't have control over that. The person on top usually does. And I think when you hear stories like that, it's disappointing to me. It's not unique to our industry. It happens in all industries, and it's disappointing to hear that. I left the company. I left Beyond Meat, and I still see them as the one that really broke open this huge door for many of us to walk in through. The innovator, the leader. Unfortunately, today I don't see that they really are the innovator anymore. They may still be one of the leaders out there, but I don't think they're the leader anymore. It's disappointing to see that. I'm proud of the few years that I spent there. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for Beyond Meat. I'm pretty sure of that. So I'm really proud of the time there, and I'm really happy that I had an opportunity to move forward. And I can tell you what, I would be proud of anybody leaving my team to go out and do something similar. And that, you know, that I think is really important. We're all trying to accomplish similar things, which is number one, grow a business. Number two, be profitable in that business. And number three, create a sustainable business that's good, not just for our own personal health, but for the health of our planet. And because we're all on that same similar track, I would hope that we would do our best to take care of our employees and make sure that they were happy, the best that we can. You can't be perfect there, and I get that. So knowing that, I've been very aware of the people that have worked for and with me, and I always tried my best to make sure that they were getting what they needed to be happy and grow with the company if that's what they chose to do.
Gotcha. Beautiful. So tell us again the name of the company. How can people, find out about it online, website, social media, anything else, so people can continue their journey of discovery?
Yeah. So Before the Butcher is the name of the company. You can go to BTB Foods, like Before the Butcher, but btbfoods.com, and find us online. And you can order all of our retail products online, just right straight through our website. I know a lot of people like doing it. It's a lot easier than even going into the grocery store, right? So,
and you ship with dry ice, right?
Yeah. We have a third party company that does it for us, but yeah, they get it out there, and they do a really good job getting our products out to the customers. So we appreciate that, and we always look forward to growth on the e-commerce side, though it is challenging with a perishable product, trying to send it, but because it's expensive, but it's worth it if you get it.
All right. So btbfoods.com, folks can order from the full line online. It did come with a block of dry ice, which just makes a great toy, as long as you wear gloves.
Yeah, be careful. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, all the good social media as well.
All right, great. Danny O'Malley of Before the Butcher, thank you so much for the work you're doing in the world and for taking the time today.
Thank you, Howard. I appreciate the time.
All right, that's a wrap. And plantyourself.com/551 for the show notes for today's episode. Let's see, garden news and movement news are the same because it's time to start weeding, to start preparing the grounds and the beds for the work that's going to come and the planting that's going to happen. And so this morning spent an hour just hoeing and weeding the path between the two halves of the garden beds. Filled up lots and lots of carts, hauled the carts that were kind of very heavy with wet earth, as well as the weeds, down to the compost pile, hauled them in, came back. All in all, I covered about, 30 square feet in about an hour, and it was pretty hard work. So a lot of bending, a lot of lifting, a lot of leg work. It was a leg day too, as I'm pounding my legs into the ground trying to move this really heavy cart up an incline filled with all that stuff. Good news is tons and tons of earthworms. So the soil is looking happy and healthy. All this rain we've been getting is obviously making some critters very, very happy. All right, time for thanks. Thanks to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song Sabali Dawn, the Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at his website, willridenauer.com. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Brittany Porter, Dominic Maurer, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatherley, Mary Jane Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Behrens, Tina Scharf, Tina Ahern, Jen Filkinovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious Michelle X, Elsbeth Feldman, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Landry, Josina, Sarah Durkis, Kelly Cameron, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Benham, Gila Sert, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorona Vizov, Gio and Carolyn Argentati, Jody Friesner, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, Aviva Lael, Alicia Lemus, Val Linneman, Nick Harper, Bandana Charlie, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Scharf, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Koppel, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Sharon Hirschman, Linda Ayad, Holm Hedegaard, Isa Tuzinwa, Connie Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Olakoski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Marani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Peter W. Evans, Dennis Bird, Darby Kelly, Lori Fanny, Linnea Lundquist, Emily Iconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan Picorni, Stephen Leenan, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, Deanne Bishop, Bilberry Elf, Marjorie Lewis, Trisha Adams, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunmarie Hagan, Tracy Gullidge, Laura Heaton, Meg from Mama Says, Stacey Stokes, Ben Savage, Michael Kay, David Hughes, Connie Rogers, Claire England, Sally Robertson, Paranganchi, Amy Daly, Brian Tourville, Mark Jeffrey Johnson, Josie Dempsey, Karen Schmidt, Pamela Hayden, Emily Perryman, Allison Corbett, Richard Stone, Lauren Vaught of Edible Musings, Aaron Hasty, Sean Owen, Sagar Naik, Erica Piedra, Danielle Roberts, Michael Lushton, Sarah Johnson, Catherine Floyd, for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for now. As always, be well, my friends.